What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Paddy Pimblett deserves title shot according to Makhachev's coach. With his win over Michael Chandler on Saturday, Paddy Pimblett's extended his UFC record to a perfect 7-0. While many members of the MMA community believe that Chandler would prove to be the toughest test of the baddie's career, the streaking Scouser rose to the occasion and made a statement with his third round finish. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. On the heels of the win, which now sees Pimblett land at number 8 on the lightweight rankings, aka coach Javier Mendez believes that it's time for the baddie to fight for the title. During the latest episode of the Javier and Mo show, Mendez spoke about the situation, arguing Pimblett's case.
Paddy's ready to face anybody. I mean, what he's done already, his credentials, his winning record in the UFC, and his hype, and what he can do, how he can motivate people. If they give him the next title shot, he deserves it because they gave it to him. So whoever they give it to him, they give, and let's see who they give him to, who gets into the arena with him next. I don't know, but is he worthy? Yes. Yes, he's very interesting, and he's got a whole England behind him, and a lot of America is going to be behind him. Most of America will be behind him. Yeah, he has a lot of fans, and I'm a fan. I wasn't a big fan at the beginning. I was not. When he fought Jared Gordon, I was like, nah, but I become a huge fan.
So far, no word yet on when Pimblett will be back in action. However, the expectation is he'll see a big step up in competition for his next bout, with opponents like Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, and Charles Oliveira all reportedly in the mix. If Mendez has his way, however, we could see the baddie fight for the title in his next outing. Paddy Pimblett released video footage backstage after the fight against Michael Chandler. Paddy showed respect to Chandler's kid and his wife, and then thanked Chandler twice for sharing the octagon with him. Here's the clip.
Thank you very much. Yeah, dude. Hope you good, little man. Paddy. Paddy. Thank you very much. Again, bro. Thank you for stepping up and cheering me up. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ilia Topuria responds to Khabib's comments. We reported yesterday that Khabib shut down the fight between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev because, in his words, not ours, Ilia is a nobody at 155. Well, Topuria saw the comments because he responded to Khabib on X by writing, "Khabib knows I'm the one to take the belt from Islam. Only reason he doesn't want Islam to fight me." Later, Ilia Topuria had an interview and basically said he's not accepting any other fights and is willing to wait until fall to fight Makhachev. Here's what he had to say. "I want to fight in the summer, but if that doesn't work out, I'm ready for a title fight in the fall. We are not considering other options." This is a quote from TASS, a Russian outlet, so take it with a grain of salt, as you'll find out why later in the video. As we're on the topic of Ilia Topuria, Charles Oliveira was interviewed by MMA journalist Alvaro Comanero last night. Oliveira talked about a potential fight with Ilia Topuria, and he was open to fighting him. Here's what he had to say. "If this fight happens, I'll move forward, just like I've always done with everyone. He's a tough guy, but lightweight is a very, very complex division. Guys have hard kicks and good jiu-jitsu, but I'd press on. A knockout threat shows how tough my division is. But as I said, he has my utmost respect as a person." Who do you want to see Ilia Topuria fight next? Let us know down in the comments below. Khamzat Chimaev fight delay is fake news? It was reported last night that Khamzat's championship fight date was being delayed due to an ongoing visa issue, according to sources. Homa Fight reached out and is now reporting that this news was fake, and the source, which is a Russian outlet called TASS, does not have direct contact with anyone in Khamzat's team. On top of that, with Dana's connections to the president, even if this was an issue, it should be resolved fairly quickly. Once their fight is actually announced, who do you think will win, Khamzat or DDP? Let us know in the comment section below. Garry talks about his welterweight predictions. Garry might be introduced as the future by Bruce Buffer. However, the way he sees things, he's just part of the new generation of welterweights who are all ready to send the previous generation packing. During an interview with Severe MMA, Garry spoke about the welterweight division and how fighters like him are ushering in a new era at 170. "I think the old get eaten by the new and the division's changing. We're seeing that. You've got Moraes, Prates, me, Jack, Sean, Shavkat. You're seeing the young boys come up in the division and they're going to start wiping out the older generation. You're seeing people trying to stay relevant and stay on their spot, but they're going to fizzle out eventually. And I think you're seeing the changing of the guard. You're seeing the new era, the new evolution of the welterweight division, and it's hella exciting." In addition to the up-and-coming young fighters that Garry listed while discussing the new generation of welterweights, he also spoke about Islam Makhachev, who has made it crystal clear that his ultimate goal is moving up and pursuing another title. Although Makhachev hasn't made the move up to 170 thus far, Garry believes that it's only a matter of time before the lightweight champion makes the move official. He's not in the welterweight division yet, but he will be soon, and if he comes up, he's the biggest problem. Although Ali Abdelaziz has denied the rumor that Makhachev is waiting for the Belal Muhammad JDM fight to see whether Muhammad loses before figuring out his next move, it seems to be more a question of when Makhachev moves up rather than a question of if. Garry reacted to old footage of Carlos Prates quitting in a fight. In the footage, you can see Prates giving up during the fight, putting his hand up and kneeling down for the loss. Garry claims this is a quitter's mentality. Here's what Ian had to say.
Did you see it? Here, look at this. This is a video of Carlos Prates and his true fighting spirit, called being a quitter. He'd just been beaten up all the rounds prior, puts his hand up, shakes his head, says, "I'm done," and then just drops to the ground in absolute despair because he knows that deep down, he's not a fighter.
The two face off next weekend. Who do you think will win? Movsar Evloev sends a message to Yair Rodriguez and Gene Silva. Following this past weekend's UFC 314 card, both Yair Rodriguez and Gene Silva called for title fights against Alexander Volkanovski. In the case of Rodriguez, he feels like after his win over Pitbull, it's now time for him and Alexander Volkanovski to run things back. In the case of Gene Silva, he believes that a knockout win over one of the biggest knockout artists at 155 in Drew Dober and a submission win over one of the best grapplers at 145 in Bryce Mitchell puts him in line for a crack at the title. Movsar Evloev, however, isn't feeling it. During an interview with MMA Junkie, he fired back at both fighters, saying that the only knock anyone's been able to use against his case for a crack at the title is his lack of finishes inside the octagon. I think it was like the best fight of Yair Rodriguez forever, and with Pitbull, he's a dangerous opponent. It was a good fight, but I don't think that's enough to fight for the title again. Yair, if you want to fight for the title, you have to beat me first, and then you deserve it. Like I said, if you have contender who deserves it more than I, just let me test him. The way Caio Borralho sees things, a card co-headlined by him and fellow fighting nerd Gene Silva, in which both guys compete for titles, would be electrifying. Imagine me versus DDP for the middleweight title, Gene Silva versus Volk for the featherweight title. It's close. That will be crazy. Fighting nerds take over. Poha. Coach Joe Lopez revealed that after hurting his thumb during training camp, their team believes that Volk's hand is broken, which could wind up being the deciding factor in how active the champion is between now and the end of the year. Caio Borralho goes off on middleweight division. Since picking up the biggest win of his career against Jared Cannonier back in August, there's really been no news on Caio Borralho's next fight. In a series of posts on social media this week, Borralho unloaded on his fellow contenders, accusing other middleweights of running from him. "Everyone is running. I'm already 8 months without fighting, and my brothers perform like that. This way, I'm never fighting again." He then followed it up by accusing Nasruddin Imavov and Robert Whittaker of avoiding him. So Imavov is running, Whittaker is running, so there's only one guy in my mind. Anthony Hernandez. What about we fight? I'm 7 straight wins. You too. So get ready to get finished. The way he sees things, a fight against Fluffy Hernandez is the only fight that makes sense for the division. That's the fight to make to see who is the #1 contender for the belt. Nobody has more straight wins than us. Who wins goes to the belt. Am I right? He then poked holes in Nasruddin Imavov's reasoning for having no interest in this fight. Imavov said that I need a win against a top 5 first for him to fight me. Let's go to the facts. When I beat Cannonier, he was top 5, right after I became top 5. And that's exactly what I'm asking to do fighting you. Bro is so afraid that he's not even thinking right. While Imavov is technically ranked first at 185, the expectation is that Khamzat Chimaev will get the next crack at the belt, which could open up the door to a #1 contender bout between Imavov and Borralho. Khabib praises Belal Muhammad ahead of UFC 315. Although some members of the MMA world have not embraced Belal Muhammad, Khabib Nurmagomedov has nothing but good things to say about the welterweight champion ahead of his fight with Jack Della Maddalena at UFC 315. During an interview with Adam Zubarayev on YouTube, the Eagle went so far as to say that Muhammad has one of the best gas tanks in the UFC. You may not like a person, but that doesn't mean he's a bad fighter. We should look at the stats. When did he even lose? A very long time ago. He has a very good win streak. I think it would be hard to go past Belal. That's his style, constantly moving forward. Wrestle, strike, wrestle, strike. He also has a great gas tank. I think it's the most underrated gas tank in the UFC now. He's the best in his weight class and top 5 in the UFC in terms of cardio. I wrestled with him myself. He's a hard worker, and cardio is Belal's most valuable asset at the moment. Muhammad seemed appreciative of the compliments and replied with a heart. In addition to talking about Belal Muhammad's upcoming fight, Khabib also spoke about Umar Nurmagomedov's return and the recent call-out from Peter Yan. Although he doesn't think Umar will be good to go by July, he does want to see the two fight. Umar will only be ready by October. July is not possible. I think it's a top-tier fight, a very serious one. They're both at a level where a win could move them closer to the title. With Peter Yan ranked 2nd at 135 and Umar ranked 3rd at 135, a fight between the two definitely seems to make sense. UFC Tournament in Russia? The last time the UFC went to Russia was back in 2018. for the Alistair Overeem-Alexei Oleinik fight. The promotion has not been back since, but according to the Russian direct investment funds Kirill Dmitriev, there's a chance that the UFC returns with something big. In a post shared on social media by Vestnik MMA earlier this week, Dmitriev spoke about the situation, revealing that the UFC could return to Russia with a tournament. In a statement relayed to fans via Vestnik MMA, Dmitriev said, "We are working on the return of UFC tournaments to Russia. Over the past few years, Russian fighters oftentimes fight on and headline cards held in Abu Dhabi. However, if the UFC is planning a long-awaited return to Russia, expect the promotion to pull out all the stops with some big names and high-profile fights." Tyron Woodley reveals Dana White diss track. Many MMA fans are well aware of Tyron Woodley's viral songs, In and Out of Love and I'll Beat Your. But what many fans may not know is that the latter is actually a diss track he wrote aimed at Dana White. During the latest episode of Eric Nixick's Verse Us podcast, The Chosen One spoke about the song, revealing that if fans listen closely to the lyrics, it becomes more apparent that the song is aimed at White.
That's why I made that song, I Beat Your. If you listen to the lyrics, it was for Dana White. I couldn't say I want to beat Dana White, but I wanted to bad because he made me look stupid. Like, why are you going to sit here and act like everybody, Bisbing and Florian was laughing? I'm like, I'll be both of you. Not Florian, that's my dog. But yeah, like, you made me look stupid, man. Like, and then when I went on air, I couldn't defend myself. So if somebody said something about it, they shut my mic off. They in my ear. You can't reply. You can't say nothing. You can't speak on this.
Really?
I'm like, yeah, 100%.
Oh.
Throughout Woodley's tenure as champion, he and White butted heads on a number of occasions, most specifically after he and Damian Maia shared the octagon at UFC 214. After the fight, White took aim at Woodley for coasting instead of pushing for a finish. On the flip side, Woodley made things worse by committing what seems to be one of the cardinal sins for UFC fighters, criticizing the promotion. Given that, when Dana White was asked about the possibility of Woodley and Jorge Masvidal returning to the octagon, Dana said that the UFC probably wouldn't be bringing either fighter back. Ilia Topuria on Joe Rogan's podcast. Yesterday, Ilia Topuria teased being on Joe Rogan's podcast on social media by sharing a picture of the two in Rogan's studio. Well, we didn't have to wait too long for the podcast because Rogan released the episode today. Joe Rogan and Ilia Topuria had a lot to say about the UFC during the podcast, so let's take a look at some of his comments. Make sure to check out Joe Rogan's full podcast with Ilia Topuria down in the description. And before we continue, we have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day.
When I talked to Dana, like I was talking to him this weekend, and he was telling me all the issues that they're having, and with different fights. I was asking him some questions, like, what are you doing with this? What are you doing with that? And he starts telling me, oh, this guy wants that, and this I won't fight this guy.
Did he told you something about me?
Maybe a little bit. But he was actually specifically talking about what happens if Belal wins. You know, because Islam and Belal, they've been talking about Islam fighting Belal.
That's going to happen.
I would like that to happen if Belal wins. But that's an if. Jack Della Maddalena is a bad mother. He's good, man. Yeah. That guy's good.
Even if he wins, they're going to make that fight happen against Islam.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, if Jack Della Maddalena wins, then Jack is the new welterweight champion. And, you know, maybe he fights Islam. That makes a lot of sense. The problem with Islam fighting Belal is that they train together. And I think, you know, they had kind of said
how many guys we see fight between each other that they used to train before?
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think they should fight.
Yeah, they should fight.
I definitely think they should fight. I think Khabib doesn't like that idea.